So picture this. You're hailing a cab, and it pulls up, but there's no steering wheel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's Tesla's new cybercab, and it's causing a stir in the AI world. We've got this new report from AI Magazine fresh off the press, and I'm really excited to break this down with you.
I think what's so fascinating here is how this unveiling fits into the whole story of AI in transportation. Tesla isn't just adding some fancy tech, they're making a statement, ditching traditional controls completely.
Right. Like those butterfly doors open up at the We Robot event. How cool is that name?
It's pretty great.
And then, bam, no steering wheel, no pedals. It's like a scene straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It really is. And it's more than just looks, you know? This design is a physical representation of Tesla's absolute confidence in their AI. It's like they're saying, hey, the future's here, no human driver needed.
Yeah, it's a huge jump from what a lot of other self-driving car companies are doing. Many are still keeping those old school controls, just in case.
Exactly. And that leads us to the heart of Tesla's strategy. Cameras and AI all the way. They're not even bothering with that expensive LiDAR tech that so many others depend on.
So, instead of pricey sensors, they're using their existing fleet as a resource. All those Teslas already out there are gathering data, basically training the AI in real time as they drive around.
Precisely. It's called fleet learning, and it's a major advantage for Tesla. Every mile driven, every turn, every lane change, it all feeds back into the system, helping the AI learn and adapt constantly.
So it's learning from actual driving, not just simulations. That's pretty wild.
It really is. This way, Tesla can gather a super diverse data set. You know, different road conditions, driving styles, even those unexpected events that are hard to recreate in a sim.
Okay, but how do we know if this is really working? Can AI actually deal with all the crazy stuff that happens when you're driving?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And this is where things get even more interesting. Elon Musk, and he's not exactly known for holding back, has said self-driving cars will be 10 to 20 to 30 times safer than a human.
Whoa, that's a bold statement. Is there any evidence to back that up?
It's still early, but the potential for AI to cut down on human error is definitely there. Just think about it. AI doesn't get distracted, doesn't get tired, doesn't drive under the influence.
You've got a point. If self-driving cars can actually live up to that promise of being safer, it could change everything. Car insurance rates, how we design our cities, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely. And Tesla's not stopping at just individual cars either. Remember the Cybervan concept Musk mentioned a while back? A self-driving van that fits like 20 people?
Oh yeah, the self-driving party bus. Seriously though, what does something like that mean for the future?
It shows Tesla's thinking bigger. They're imagining AI-driven vehicles transforming entire transit systems, not just personal transportation. Imagine a network of these cybervans giving everyone on-demand, efficient, and accessible transportation.
No more waiting for the bus in the rain. But how far out is this vision? Is this something we might see in our lifetime?
Well, hold on tight, because Musk also made another big announcement. Tesla's aiming to release fully autonomous, unsupervised tech in their Model 3 and Model Y cars in Texas and California by next year.
Wait, next year?
Yeah.
That's insane. But what does fully autonomous, unsupervised even mean in practice? Are we talking cars driving around with no one inside?
Yeah, basically, the AI is in complete control, making all the decisions without any human help, no backup driver, nothing. This is a huge step. It's essential for getting regulatory approval and seeing these cars on roads everywhere.
Kind of mind-blowing. We could be right on the edge of a massive transportation revolution. But here's the thing. Tesla's stock actually dropped after this announcement. What's up with that?
Yeah, that's strange, isn't it? I think there are a few things happening. Some investors are probably worried about Tesla's ambitious timelines, which, let's be honest, haven't always been perfect in the past.
So maybe some doubt about them actually pulling this off by next year.
Exactly. Plus, there's all the regulatory stuff that self-driving cars still have to deal with. Getting the laws in place for completely driverless cars is a complex process, and it's still ongoing.
I get it. Even if the tech is ready, there are a ton of legal and ethical questions to work out.
Totally. But then again, we have companies like Wave, a self-driving startup that just got Europe's biggest AI investment ever. Clearly, there's still a lot of excitement and faith in this tech's future.
It's like a battle between caution and optimism, and who knows who will win in the end.
It really is. We're at a turning point, and the next couple of years will be crucial to see if Tesla can fulfill these promises and really change how we get around.
Okay, before we go deeper, let's take a step back and look at the big picture. The Cybercab's missing steering wheel is a powerful symbol, but it also brings up important questions about us humans and our role in all of this.
It definitely does. Like, are we actually ready to give up control? To completely trust an AI?
That's a good point. We've always had this sense of agency behind the wheel, this feeling of being in charge. Letting go of that is going to be a huge mental shift.
It is. And it's not just about feeling in control. Driving has always been this active, engaging thing. Now it's becoming more passive, like riding a train or a plane.
It reminds me of those futuristic movies where people are just chilling in their self-driving pods, staring out the window or watching movies. Kind of creepy, right?
A little bit, yeah. And that's why the design of these systems, both the tech and the human side, is so critical.
What do you mean by human side of the design?
It's about making a user experience that builds trust and confidence. The AI can't just be competent. It has to be transparent, predictable, even a little bit personable, you know?
I like that. So not just a cold robotic machine, but something that feels more intuitive, maybe even a little friendly.
Exactly. It's about making the shift to a driverless world as smooth and natural as possible. And that's where it gets really interesting. We're not just designing machines, we're designing a future where humans and AI live and work together in ways we're only just starting to imagine.
Wow, it's like we're writing a whole new chapter in human history. But before we get too lost in the future, let's bring it back to the present.
Sounds good. There's still so much to unpack about Tesla's current strategy and what it tells us about where the whole industry is heading.
All right, so let's shift gears and delve back into how Tesla's developing its AI. You mentioned fleet learning, but can you give us a clearer picture of what that looks like in action?
Sure. It all boils down to the data. Picture a massive network of Teslas out there, each one with all these cameras capturing everything that's going on around them.
So we're talking a constant flood of video footage coming in from all these cars.
More than just video. They're also grabbing data from their sensors, GPS systems, even how the driver interacts with the car's features.
Wow, that's a mountain of information. But how does Tesla make sense of all that raw data? How do they use it to actually train their AI?
That's where the magic happens. They have these huge teams of engineers and data scientists labeling and tagging all this data.
Labeling and tagging, what does that mean exactly?
It means they're showing the AI what to look for. They might mark a video frame to identify a pedestrian crossing the street or a cyclist merging into traffic, for example.
I see. They're giving the AI context, helping it understand what all those pixels and sensor readings actually represent in the real world.
You got it. And then they use this labeled data to train the AI algorithms. They're teaching the AI to recognize patterns, make predictions, and ultimately to make driving decisions.
So the more data they gather and label, the smarter the AI gets.
Exactly. And with millions of Teslas out there already, racking up billions of miles of driving data, Tesla has a huge head start in this race to develop truly autonomous vehicles.
It's like the snowball effect, right? The more the AI learns, the better it drives, the more data it collects, and on it
Yeah,
goes.
precisely. And this is one of the big differences between how Tesla's doing things and what many of its competitors are doing. Tesla's putting their chips on AI and machine learning, while others are focusing more on expensive sensor tech like LiDAR.
It's a clash of philosophies then. Cameras and AI versus sensors and pre-programmed rules.
Yeah, you could say that. It's a debate that's going on throughout the industry. Tesla believes their approach is more scalable and ultimately more effective. Their argument is that cameras, combined with powerful AI, can provide a deeper, more adaptable understanding of what's going on the road.
But are there downsides to just relying on cameras? What about when visibility is bad, like in fog or heavy rain?
That's a fair point, and it's something Tesla's critics bring up a lot. They say LiDAR, which can kind of see through those conditions, gives a critical safety advantage.
So it's a trade-off. Tesla's method could be more scalable and adaptable, but it might be more vulnerable to some environmental challenges.
Exactly, and we'll just have to see which approach wins out in the end.
It's a fascinating race, and the stakes are incredibly high. But before we get too caught up in the technical details, I want to circle back to the human experience. We talked about the mental shift of giving up control, but what about the broader impacts on society?
That's something we can't ignore, for sure. The implications of self-driving vehicles go way beyond the individual driver. We could see disruption in whole industries, shifts in urban planning, even fundamental changes in how we live our lives.
Like, what about jobs? What happens to all the truck drivers, taxi drivers, all those professions that rely on human drivers?
It's a question that's causing a lot of anxiety. Policymakers are trying to wrap their heads around the economic and social consequences of this tech revolution.
It's a complex problem without easy solutions. But it's clear we need to start thinking about these things now, before these technologies become so deeply woven into our lives that it's too late to change course.
Absolutely. We have a responsibility to talk about these issues, to explore the potential benefits and the risks, and to shape a future where technology works for us, not the other way around.
Well said. And on that note, let's take a break and come back with a fresh perspective. We still have a lot to cover.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about some big societal shifts. But it goes beyond just individual jobs, doesn't it? Whole industries could be transformed by this tech.
Yeah, it's like a ripple effect, right? Imagine fleets of self-driving trucks moving goods all over the country. That impacts logistics, warehousing, maybe even manufacturing.
Exactly. And think about the impact on energy use. More efficient routes, less time spent idling in traffic. That could really lower our dependence on fossil fuels.
So less pollution, smoother traffic flow. It sounds almost too good to be true. Are there any downsides we should be thinking about?
Of course, every big technological change comes with its own set of challenges. One concern is the potential for more sprawl. If commutes become super easy and people don't have to actively drive, they might be more willing to live farther away from city centers.
So instead of everyone having shorter commutes, people might end up living farther out and spending even more time in their cars, even if they're not technically driving.
Yeah, it's kind of a paradox. And it raises questions about how we plan our cities and build our infrastructure. Do we need to completely rethink our cities to make this work? How do we make sure these advancements benefit everyone, not just the people who can afford to live in those sprawling suburbs?
It's like we're figuring things out as we go. We're developing this amazing tech, but we're still trying to understand how it fits into the bigger picture of society.
That's a great way to put it. And it shows why it's so important to have these conversations now. We need to be proactive, not reactive.
Okay, so we've touched on jobs, the environment, urban planning. What about the whole idea of owning a car? Will people even need to own cars anymore if they can just call up a self-driving taxi whenever they need one?
That's a fascinating question. It's tied to this idea of the sharing economy that's already shaking things up in so many industries. Imagine subscribing to a transportation service that gives you access to a whole fleet of self-driving vehicles whenever you need one, instead of owning a single car.
It would be like having a personal chauffeur on call. But what would that mean for car companies? Would they become more like mobility providers, selling transportation access instead of individual cars?
That's definitely possible. It could completely change the automotive industry. We might even see a shift away from individual car ownership, especially in cities where ride-sharing and public transportation are already popular.
Wow, it's mind-blowing to think about all the potential changes. It's like we're on the edge of a huge paradigm shift, not just in transportation, but in our whole relationship with technology.
I completely agree. And it's important to remember that this isn't just about Tesla. There are tons of other companies and researchers pushing the boundaries of AI and transportation.
Right, we talked about Wave before, that self-driving startup that got that huge investment in Europe. Are they doing things like Tesla, or are they trying different things?
Wave is interesting because they're really focused on a data-driven approach to navigation. They're not just relying on pre-programmed rules and super detailed maps. They're teaching their AI to learn from real-world driving, kind of like Tesla.
So it's like they're trying to teach the AI to think like a human driver, always observing and reacting to what's going on around it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're collecting massive amounts of driving data from cameras and sensors and using it to train their AI algorithms.
It sounds like there are a lot of similarities between what they're doing and what Tesla's doing. What sets them apart?
One key difference is how much Wave emphasizes what they call end-to-end learning. They're trying to build a system where the AI handles every part of driving, perceiving the environment, making decisions, controlling the car without needing preset rules or any human intervention.
So it's like they're taking the hands-off approach to the extreme.
You could say that. It's a bold move, but it has the potential to completely change how we think about autonomous driving.
It's so interesting to see how different companies are tackling this challenge, each with its own approach. But with all this focus on technology, it's easy to forget about the human side of things.
You're right. In the end, whether any of this tech succeeds depends on how well it fits into our lives, how well it meets our needs and addresses our concerns.
And that brings us back to the design of these systems. We talked before about the need for transparency, predictability, even a bit of personality. How do we ensure these AI-driven cars feel safe, intuitive, even enjoyable to use?
That's where the fields of human-computer interaction and user experience design come in. It's about making interfaces that are easy to understand and use, even for people who aren't tech experts.
So things like clear visual cues, simple controls, maybe even voice commands or conversational interfaces?
Exactly. And it goes beyond the technical stuff, too. It's about the emotional experience. How do we make people feel comfortable and trusting in a driverless car?
I imagine that's going to be a big challenge. A lot of people are anxious about giving up control, about putting their safety in the hands of a machine.
Absolutely. And that's why building trust and transparency into these systems is so important. The AI needs to be able to explain its decisions, talk to the passengers clearly, and react appropriately in unexpected situations.
It's almost like we need to create this sense of teamwork between the AI and the passenger, a feeling of shared responsibility.
I love that idea. It's not about replacing human drivers with machines. It's about creating a more collaborative, harmonious relationship between humans and technology.
That's a great way to put it. And it brings up another important point, accessibility. How do we make sure these advancements are beneficial for everyone, no matter their physical abilities or economic situation?
That's a crucial question. We need to design self-driving vehicles with inclusivity in mind. That means features that work for people with disabilities, older adults, and anyone who might have trouble using traditional transportation.
It's about building a future of transportation that's not just smarter and more efficient, but also fairer and more accessible for everyone.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to have diverse voices and perspectives involved in developing and implementing this technology. We need to build a future that works for all of us.
We've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about the tech, the social impacts, the human side of it all. But I feel like there's one big question we still need to tackle. What does it all mean? What's the bigger picture?
That's a great question. I think the bigger picture is this. We're seeing a fundamental shift in our relationship with technology. For decades, we've been making machines to do our work, to make our lives easier and more efficient. But now, with AI, we're entering a new era where machines are more than tools. They're collaborators, partners, even companions.
That's like the lines are blurring between humans and machines. We're creating a world where tech is becoming a part of who we are and how we experience the world.
Exactly, and that's both exciting and a little scary, isn't it? It makes us ask questions about our own identity, about what it means to be human in a world where machines are becoming so intelligent and independent.
It feels like we're stepping into the unknown, a future full of possibilities, but also some uncertainty.
You got it. And it's up to us to navigate this new world with wisdom, curiosity, and a sense of responsibility. We need to ask ourselves, what kind of future do we want? What role do we want technology to play in our lives?
And those are questions we'll keep exploring in our next segment. But for now, let's take a minute to think about everything we've learned so far. It's been quite a journey. It's pretty amazing how much the whole conversation about AI and transportation has changed, right? We've gone from cars that can barely park themselves to talking about fully autonomous AI vehicles that could reshape everything.
It's crazy how fast this field is moving. And like we've been saying, it's not just about the technology itself, it's about figuring out what it means for our lives, our societies, even what it means to be human.
For sure. And I think one of the most interesting things we've talked about is this idea of letting go of the wheel, putting our trust in an AI to drive us around.
Yeah, it's definitely a mental leap for a lot of people. We're so used to being in control, feeling that direct connection between what we do and how the car moves. Letting go of that can be a little unsettling, maybe even scary for some.
You know, it makes me think of that scene in 2001, A Space Odyssey, where the astronaut is fighting with HAL 9000, the AI, for control of the spaceship. It might be a bit dramatic, but it shows that primal fear we have of machines taking over.
It's a good example of the anxieties we're dealing with today as AI becomes more and more a part of our lives. But I think it's important to remember AI isn't some big scary monster that's going to turn on us. It's a tool, technology that we can use for good or bad, depending on our choices.
So how do we make sure we're using this technology the right way? How do we avoid those dystopian futures where AI takes over?
Well, I think it starts with understanding. We need to know how AI works, what it can and can't do, how it's being used in our world. We also need to have open and honest discussions about the ethical side of things, like what values are we putting into our AI systems? Who's responsible when things go wrong?
Those are big questions.
Yeah,
And I think we need everyone at the table for those discussions, not just the tech people, but also ethicists, social scientists, policymakers, everyday people.
absolutely. It's not just a tech issue, it's a societal issue. We have to work together knowing that the decisions we make now will affect the future for generations to come.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Tesla's Cybercab and what it tells us about the future of AI and transportation, I want to leave our listeners with a question to think about.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so imagine a future where self-driving cars are everywhere, where cities are filled with these vehicles navigating themselves. What kind of world would that be? What would it mean for us as individuals, for our communities, for how we relate to technology?
It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer, but it's something we need to really consider as we move into this unknown territory. The future of transportation, the future of our world, is being shaped right now, and it's up to all of us to be part of that conversation, ask the hard questions, and make sure we're building a future we can all be proud of.
That's all for our deep dive today. Hopefully this episode has given you some things to think about, maybe even sparked your own curiosity about what's next for AI and transportation. Thanks for joining us.